what's happening? Turn that all the way down right there. What's happening? It's draft day. Draft starts in, I think, about an hour. So we're gonna try to get this. We're gonna try to go ahead and get right into it. Dog Food Radio. We're gonna be looking at the defensive AFC North grades pre-draft. Um, gonna basically look at each team in the AFC North, kind of break them down by position, give them a letter grade, and then maybe try to guess, what a team is going to do tonight, given maybe what some of their needs might be. So let's go ahead and get right into it real quick. So let's start with the Browns, 2024. Um, for most of the year, they were a top 5 defense, and they finished the season ranked 14th. But if you look at what they were in passing, they were the number 1 pass defense in the league and the number 11 rush, defense against rush. So it makes sense why the cornerbacks would be an A plus. You got 3 corners that can go man up. Safety play. There's been differing opinions on the safety play. I felt like the safety play was solid. There were some injuries to that position that really didn't help. But I felt for the most part, the back end of the defense was tremendous. And then if we obviously look at the defensive ends, Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, Okoronkwo, Wright. I would say Garrett makes this an A plus group. Obviously, defensive player of the year. So nothing to really talk about there. Defensive tackles. I thought the defensive tackle play was a vast improvement from the previous season under Joe Woods, the Joe Woods season. Now, we know that the linebackers was probably the weakest part of the defense. And I probably could have gave the outside linebackers a B. Obviously, JOK had a tremendous year, but there's just not a lot of depth there. So him by himself, we maybe could have went B there. So it really just depends, B minus B. But the inside linebackers, I just went C plus because we really don't know what they're going to look like. But linebacker is easily the area that could see the most improvement, or we would like to see the most improvement going into 2024. So if you look at the report card there, you really only have a C level position. And again, we'll probably update these throughout the year. Maybe we'll do a grade once a quarter. We'll do them quarterly or something when the season starts, every 4 games or so, just to see how they're tracking, how they're performing. But it wouldn't surprise me if the Browns, I mean, you could go a number of positions on defense. Obviously, the glaring need would be linebacker. But if you wanted to draft, if there was a best available defensive end, if there was a best available, defensive tackle, there was a best available cornerback, at this point, with the foundation of the defense that you have, you should be trying to fill in slots, fill in roles so that in this division, in the AFC North, because you'll see when we look at the other grades, because the grades really don't differ from team to team. There's just certain strengths that certain teams have when you look at the grade. But offense really needs to be secondary to the defense, because in the AFC North, you got to stop people. Trying to outscore them is not really going to bear much weight, especially when you get later into the season. It's going to come down to defense and physicality. And this defense right here, I mean, they proved it for 90% of the season. So let's go ahead and pause right there real quick for a quick commercial break. And we will be right back with Dawg Food Radio Show. All right. So let's take it to the Ravens. All right. Now let's look at what the Ravens were. I think most of the year, again, they were a top 5 defense. No questions asked. And to finish the year, they were number 1 overall. They were number 6 against the pass, and they were number 14 against the run. So if you look at the back end of the secondary, again, safety play, they've got solid safety play. Cornerbacks, I would say Humphrey is a large reason as to why that's a B plus. But obviously, when you compare it against what the Browns have, I don't even think you could give it an A. I think B plus is a solid grade because again, they were solid. I mean, if you're number 6 um, against the pass, you know that's solid. But again, as y'all know, there's levels to different things. So back end of their secondary is very solid. Obviously, you got Matabike. He's the main reason that that is an A. Um, I didn't think I could go B plus. I think they're probably going to address their depth at that position. So you know, defensive end, they pretty much have a star there. That's going to bring up the whole room. Now their defensive tackles, again, that's probably the weak part of their particular defense. But again, defense is a unit, and you know the Ravens defense does play as a unit. They lost Patrick Queen, but again, even with that loss, their linebacker core still solid. Roquan Smith, Van Noy, that had to go ahead and give that an A plus. That's largely because of Roquan Smith, but you know, again, solid defense. They've had a solid defense for 30 something years. So um, that's their offense tends to match their defense, and that's what the Browns are hoping to achieve, where you can be just as dominant on both sides of the ball. And I think that was the separator this past season, and probably a little bit more on the health side for them as well. But going into next year, um, I mean, definitely, you already know their defense is going to be one of the top. Again, you already know that. So, I would think in draft, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe tried to go defensive tackle, um, or maybe even another corner, because I do think you're probably gonna the AFC North is probably gonna you're probably gonna have to have your corner game right, given that everybody has a dynamic receiver. Everybody. I would probably say that the Ravens receiving core is probably the weaker if we're just talking about just the position of anybody else in the division. So again, nothing to really talk about there. You see, they only have a C, one C on their report card as well. So again, solid D there. Let's take it to the Steelers. Um, and let's see what they were ranked in total defense. So the Steelers in total defense, they were ranked number, where are they at on here? They were ranked number 6, and that's a bit of a surprise, given that most of the season, I don't know that they were considered a top 5 defense. Not to say that they were garbage, but number 6, because that's higher than the Browns in terms of total defensive ranking. Now, against the pass, the Steelers were number 17, and against the run, they were number 19. So, with that being said, Fitzpatrick is probably the anchor of the secondary. I think he was hurt a lot of the year, but again, you know, you got to give that position an A. As far as the free safeties are concerned, solid corners, but they're not on par as far as the Ravens or the Browns are concerned. But again, solid cornerback group there, and we already know their linebackers. You probably could have went A plus across the board on that, but yeah, linebacker is definitely going to be the strength of their defense for sure. And then you got Cam Hayward and Ogunjobi on the defensive end. Defensive tackle, similar to the Ravens, is probably where they're the weakest. But again, defense is played as a unit, and the Steelers tend to have a solid defense. You saw that we talked about teams that are number 1 or top 10, I'm sorry, in run defense, the success that they have as far as winning the division. Again, let's take a look at rushing defense. As far as the rankings were concerned, Cleveland Browns was 11, Ravens were 14, Steelers were 19, Bengals were 26. So the Browns, even though they had the higher ranking in the division in rushing defense, weren't able to win the division. Again, largely you could attribute that to injury. So um, defense is going to be the name of the game going into 2024. There's no question about it. And as you see, again, they really only, if you look at it, they only have 2 C's. And that's at the strong safety position. But again, they make up for it in elite linebacker play and what that allows them to do from a pass rush and a coverage perspective. So again, another solid defensive group. And to wrap it on up, let's take a look at the Bengals. Now, I believe Hendrickson just requested a trade today, so who knows if they will trade him. If they do trade him, that grade probably drops down to a C+. If they lose Hendrickson, depending on if they're able to get anything back in return for him. But as of right now, we got the defensive ends at an A for them right there. That might be a little high, but I think the lowest you could go is B on that. Defensive tackle is kind of their weakest position, but you'll notice that with their defense, and that probably illustrates the year that they had combined with Joe Burrow's injuries, because he probably would have masked some of the defensive problems. They're really not on par, especially with losing DJ Reader, and the other safety was at Bates. So that losing some of those guys definitely takes their defense down a tick. Now, they've only got 1 A and a bunch of C's across the board, but all it takes is a trade or maybe hitting in the draft, and they're right up there. Now, we know that the Browns have had their number. I think that's largely because of the mismatches. Styles make fights. They may not be constructed to deal with the Browns' physicality. And then even when you look at the interior, defensive tackle and some of the inside linebacker play, what the Browns do well as far as the power run game and the play action game, that probably bodes well when you match up against the Bengals versus when they play the Chiefs. I'm not going to say that that's a mismatch for the Chiefs, but they tend to play them a little bit better for whatever reason. And with the Chiefs being on the schedule for the Browns this season, it'll be interesting to see how the Browns match up. That's actually a favorable matchup, not favorable in terms of advantage, but favorable in terms of being able to, get a feel for Mahomes, get a feel for the pocket awareness, get a feel for the speed, get a feel for how he reads defenses, things like that. And because you're probably going to have to meet them again in the playoffs. So Cincinnati could go a number of ways if they decide to go defense in the draft. I'm not familiar with how many picks that they have, but yeah, after the draft, we're going to revisit it. So we'll probably do defense first, and then we'll do offensive grades, and we may revisit it towards the start of the season on some video game type matchups, like where you just look at everything on paper, and then obviously the games aren't played on paper. You got to go out there and play the games. So draft starts in about 56 minutes. So just wanted to get this one out. Again, Dog Food Radio, part of the Fanatical Sports Network. Fans First Sports Network, Fanatical Elves Network. And again, shout out to everybody that's on the team. We got a lot of great content. So thank you everybody for the support and interacting with us on Twitter and everything like that. We really appreciate it. Be sure to tune in to us at I think it's 8 o'clock Eastern. We're gonna have a live show, and I'm sure we'll do a little bit more diving into some of the grades and some of the roster moves, and depending on what kind of trades are made. So that'll do it. Again, appreciate y'all, and we will catch y'all on the next one.